Ukraine, Russia, USA. 1995. The corporate takeover won. Introduction. The hook. 1995 was not just another year after the collapse of the Soviet Union. It was the exact moment when the fate of the world's largest economies was being decided. In the United States, bombs were exploding and trials of the century were unfolding. Russia was drowning in the blood of the Chechen War. And Ukraine? Ukraine was undergoing a hidden transformation. Was it being built as a free, sovereign nation, or as a giant corporation under the management of international elites? Today, we go behind the scenes of the year that changed everything. A time when old rules stopped working, and new ones were written in blood and oil. 2. The constitutional knot, nation or corporation. Until 1995, Ukraine was still living under the Soviet Constitution of 1978. It was a purely communist document that blocked the path to the new capitalist order. The power struggle. President Kuchma entered a brutal deadlock with the Red Parliament. On June 8, 1995, the Constitutional Treaty was signed. This was a mini-constitution that gave Kuchma the power to single-handedly appoint the government, bypassing Parliament. The shadow lobby. There is a theory that the foundations of corporate management were laid during this period. A key role was played by George Soros and his International Renaissance Foundation. This organization actively lobbied for Ukraine's transition to Western legal standards, providing grants and consultants who changed the very essence of the state structure. The legal trap. This is when the process of registering Ukraine in international commercial registries, such as Dun & Bradstreet, DUNS, began. In Western commercial law, writing a country's name in all capital letters can be interpreted as a designation for a corporation, not a sovereign state. Lobbyists pushed for the Anglo-Saxon legal model to simplify the privatization of resources and transfer state assets into private hands. 3. The Passport Gambit, red versus blue. In 1995, the mass replacement of Soviet red passports with Ukrainian blue passports began. This was not just a design change. The red passport. It recorded the status of a subject of law and a beneficiary of the empire's assets. Citizens of the Soviet Union were legally considered co-owners of the gold reserves, the diamond fund, and all overseas real estate. The blue passport. This was a transition into the legal field of Admiralty Law, maritime or commercial law. Legal status. In the blue passport, personal data began to be written in all caps. For example, John Doe. In Roman and international commercial law, this signifies capitis diminutio maxima, the maximum loss of rights. It turns a living man into a natural person, a legal object, or a branch of the corporation. Thus, a sovereign was turned into a taxpayer, liable with his own property for the debts of the state. 4. The gold and the zero option. For the American listener, this is a story about the Great Robbery. Ukraine's share. According to calculations from 1991, Ukraine was entitled to 16% of all assets of the Soviet Union. We are talking about tens of billions of dollars in gold, fleets, and global real estate. The deal of the century. Under massive pressure from the United States and the IMF, Ukraine was forced to accept the zero option. Russia took all the assets, but also took all the debts. The result? In 1995, Ukraine was given an ultimatum: give up the gold or get no loans. Access to the inheritance was blocked forever. Ukraine began its journey with empty pockets. 5. The gas master, Pavlo Lazarenko and the Dnipro Clan. If Kuchma was the architect of the system, then Pavlo Lazarenko was its general contractor. The rise. In July 1995, he was a regional governor. By September 5th, he was appointed first vice prime minister. He was given the keys to the nation's gas pipeline. The tandem with Yulia Tymoshenko. In 1995, the corporation known as Unified Energy Systems of Ukraine was born. According to future U.S. court records, Lazarenko and Tymoshenko split the gas profits 50-50. The scale. The corporation's turnover was the equivalent of 800 tons of pure gold per year. This was equal to 20% of the entire nation's GDP. This was the birth of the first true oligarchs. 6. Crimea, the fleet, and the death penalty Crimea. On March 17, 1995, Kiev dealt a decisive blow to separatism. Parliament abolished the Crimean Constitution and liquidated the office of the Crimean president. Yuri Meshkov lost his power. The Black Sea Fleet. On June 9th, in Sochi, Kuchma and Yeltsin signed an agreement. Ukraine received 18.3% of the ships. Russia took 81.7% and the right to lease the base in Sevastopol. This was the geopolitical price for peace. The Council of Europe. On November 9, 1995, Ukraine became the 37th member of the organization. The main condition was a moratorium on the death penalty. With over 40,000 violent crimes occurring annually, this was a highly unpopular but necessary decision for Western integration. 7. Economy and the Mafia Black. Tuesday. In October 1995, the local currency crashed by 10% in a single day. People who had become paper millionaires lost everything. Private bank. By 1995, Private bank was becoming a powerhouse, introducing the first plastic cards and controlling the money flows of industrial giants. Bloody football. On October 15, 1995, a massive explosion rocked the stadium in Donetsk. It killed Akat Bragin. He was the true godfather of the underworld and the leader of the most powerful mafia clan in Ukraine. His death radically shifted the balance of power, opening the door for a new elite to take over. 8. The world context. Russia and USA. Russia. The First Chechen War was raging. In June 1995, a horrific terror attack in Budyonnovsk took 1,500 people hostage. It showed the world the weakness of the Kremlin. Meanwhile, Yeltsin was laying the foundation for the Cathedral of Christ the Savior. The USA and the trial of the century. All of America stood still. On October 3, 1995, 150 million people watched the verdict of the O.J. Simpson trial. Despite a mountain of evidence, the jury found him not guilty. This acquittal polarized the nation. While Americans were arguing over O.J.'s glove, in Ukraine, without any cameras, the fate of an entire nation's assets was being decided. Tragedies and technology. On April 19, 1995, the Oklahoma City bombing took 168 lives. And on August 24, Windows 95 was released, selling 7 million copies in the first month. The world officially went digital. 9. 1995 was the year Ukraine changed its legal code. Was it a path to freedom, or a masterfully executed registration of the Corporation of Ukraine? While Pavlo Lazarenko was building his gas empire and citizens were trading their sovereign red passports for blue taxpayer justice. The foundation of today's world order was being laid. Do you want to know how Ukraine developed further? Was it a nation or a corporation? Who was really pulling the strings from the shadows? We continue our journey through the wildest decade in history. Coming up next, 1996, the new Constitution, the new currency, and the darkest secrets of high-level politics. Subscribe, hit the like button, and share this video. Do you think the passport swap of '95 was a loss of sovereignty? Let us know in the comments.